All right, so welcome everybody. Welcome to actually this is going to be our final grant webinar for the year. I should say coaching and coaching leadership webinar for the year. And this will be, this is recorded today, and we are going to put this up on our website under the coaching section in the coming days as this is wrapped up and recorded and edited. As I had said on this before, as some of you had joined, we are going to be recording. So we're recording this, and we are going to make it where the recording will be the speaking view, so we won't have everybody on the screen as we are this will be public. So love to see you there. If you're not on camera, we will we'll definitely understand that and make sure that we're including everybody. So with this, today's Coach Approach webinar kind of ties into one of our previous webinars, as well as our one of our last learning circles. And it's really kind of tying into this idea of psychological safety and really how the impact of our values and mental models can both affect how we see the world around us, our psychological safety, as well as kind of how we're interacting in teams. So we're going to do some exercises and kind of go over a little bit on the psychological safety from the Google Project Aristotle, as well as pulling in some ideas on our values and what are mental models, which is really adapted from one of our more advanced courses, which is called the Adaptive Leadership. Adaptive Leadership for System Change. So that is one of the courses that some may have already gone through. And I actually encourage you, if you've already gone through some of this may be a little bit familiar related to the values. And I'm also going to say, continue on, because as you look at this and have these different reflections on values, noticing maybe as you're doing one of the exercises, or there are certain values that are popping up that maybe didn't pop up before, and how we might kind of go through that. So we'll do some exercises, as well as some group discussion, as well as some great, I think, really strong learning points for today. So with that, it gives me a great opportunity to work with my co-facilitator today, Ann Katona Lynn. So welcome, Ann.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Great to see you all.
And then I know that we have individuals that some have been on our trainings before, as well as some people that are probably newer to some of these. And welcome you all. As you have questions, comments, thoughts, please put them out in the room. We love to hear the questions, and also really kind of helps us kind of determine what's some of the best options, how we want to move today, and bring this information to you, and it's going to meet your needs. With that, we're also, and we're going to put it out as an offer. We're going to go over our learning objectives in just a second. And we're also going to be doing a presence practice, and we wanted to just put it out there as you're thinking about the presence practice. If you'd like to guide us through that, let us know. Just put your voice out, and we'll definitely make that happen. If not, I think Ann or myself will do it. Did we ever determine who was going to do it? Probably not. We probably just said, oh yeah, we'll ask, and never figured it out. So our objectives today are overview of the coach approach skills, mindset, and core principles, as well as the model. Participants will also identify their core values and how they impact their work and relationship. We're going to talk about how our values intertwine and how they both can be our benefits, and also how they can also be a little bit of a challenge. And then also we're going to look at understanding how our mental models determine how we see the world and what we can do to start to manage them. And really thinking about this through that lens of safety and psychological safety. With that, we're also, just as a little kind of a teaser or interest as there may be, the discussion on psychological safety, as well as some of the other pieces that we are going to allude to today, are part of some of this is actually part of a new course that we're working on, which is really kind of how we're aligning perspectives or bringing various groups together, utilizing both a trauma-informed lens in one sense, and then also the opportunity of how we can really kind of bring more groups together, and using some information from leading by convening, and really kind of how we really kind of see the groups around us and where the advantages of bringing those groups together might be. So those are just some future courses that we're going to pilot some this year, as well as early next year. So with that, I wanted to put it out there if anybody might be interested in doing or leading the presence practice. Anybody want to throw themselves out there for that? Give it a whirl. If not, I will be happy to do it. I could actually use it as it's been a Monday, and Mondays are always a little bit more challenging. I think there's always a lot going on. So with that, I invite you, as you're comfortable, you can keep your camera on or turn it off. I invite you, as you're comfortable, to close your eyes or lower your gaze. And let's and place your feet on the floor as well. And let's take a nice deep breath in through our nose and hold. And out through your mouth. Breathe in and hold. And out through your mouth. Breathe in and hold. And out through your mouth. And I invite you to take and just continue in a frame of breath that works for you. Just focusing on breathing in through your nose, holding it for a moment and letting it out through your mouth. And just notice with each breath where you might be holding tension or stress. And give yourself an opportunity to work that tension out. Just notice if it's maybe your face, your neck, your jaw. Just give yourself a moment to work that out. And breathe in, holding, and letting it go. Now with each breath, I want you to bring your attention to your elbows. Just notice if they're touching the chair or something around you. Just notice if you can feel the air or your clothes against your skin. Bringing that attention to where you want it. Breathe in, hold, and out. Now, as you focus on various parts of your body, you may have thoughts that are coming in, things that you have to do, and just notice that they're there. And know that you can also push them to the side. Breathe in, hold, and out. I invite you to focus on the back of your legs, your thighs. Just notice the weight of your body on your chair or your seat. Just notice that you may not have noticed your weight before. And now you can notice. And breathe in, hold, and out. And then now I want you to bring your attention all the way down to your feet and the soles of your feet or the bottoms of your feet. Just notice how you can feel that slight pressure against the ground or your shoes. Knowing that that ground is there to connect you, to support you, and to bring you closer to others, both near and far. Breathe in, hold, and out. And let's take one more nice breath. Hold, and out. And when you're ready, I invite you to come back. So one thing that we always kind of mention or after a presence practice, especially those that maybe have been doing it for a little bit, or even those that are newer to it. What are you noticing when you're thinking about or doing these presence practice? Any notices?
I always notice my yawning, which is letting me know that I was not breathing enough.
And I say for me, I also start to notice pain. That kind of chronic pain that's not always there. A little side benefit or challenge. but you know you're alive. Questions or thoughts on that?
I see an odd numbness.
I was noticing a numbness.
An odd numbness.
Emotionally or physically?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, one of the things that when we really think about this idea of presence and being present, we do start to have these, we can bring a lot more feeling into kind of how we're seeing the world around us and really start to notice it. We have the opportunity to use that or acknowledge it and put it to the side if we can. All right, Anne.
All right. Thank you, Mark. So just kind of review some things. So again, some of you may have heard this many times, but one of the key things that we talk about with the coach approach is the mindset. How are we operating, and what is it that we're coming into, and what are we practicing so that we're having this mindset? The mindset becomes part of how we operate. And so the assumptions really is that we really believe that others are capable and competent. This may have not always been the case. And so this is important because it takes a lot off of our shoulders and also helps others to feel empowered. So this is a big piece of psychological safety we'll look at more. Our role as leaders is to strengthen others and build their skills. And so, you know, we can't just assume that people don't have skills. We assume that they really do, and they have the answers. Our role is to truly support them, and that creates that psychological safety, which then can create a stronger team. And then, you know, also that makes us stronger as well. And this is, you know, what, as we use the coach approach, it is really when there is more than one answer. There's you know, there's not just one right answer. If I ask you what time it is, yes, that's a specific answer. That's, you know, that's one specific thing. But when there are more than, you know, there are more than one answer, then that's when we really can use the coach approach and use that. But having that mindset is really what we want to always think about, is how can we capture those moments when we can use the coach approach, whether it's 2 minutes, 10 minutes, 45 minutes, you know, it doesn't matter. It's always having that mindset, and that we want to support critical thinking and really using questions, those what and how questions, so that we are helping to support people being able to come up with their own solutions, as well as that, again, helps empower them to have more, a higher self-esteem, feel more confident in themselves. So that is a part of, you know, to me, I see this as such a huge piece of psychological safety. Go ahead, Mark. No, next slide. Thanks. So, you know, just to review these skills, the coach approach skills. So presence, it's, you know, it's not just doing the activities. It's not just doing presence practices. It's about being aware of who we are with, who is in front of us, and giving them our undivided attention. And with that, it's that engaged listening, not just hearing what they're saying, but hearing and being curious. What is it that they're really trying to tell me? And looking at nonverbal feedback as well. That clarifying and reflecting, making sure we are asking questions around, you know, what they're telling us. Are we accurately understanding what it is? Is there anything missing that they may have said that, you know, as I reflect back to them, I want to make sure that they are validating that what I'm reflecting back to them is accurate. And then the inquiry, and I mentioned this, the what and how questions. it's that further really looking at that curiosity in your questions. So, I talked about engaged listening earlier. It's that curiosity in your being with the person, and then also in asking your questions, and helping them to be able to reflect on themselves through your questions. And then the collaborative feedback, which is using that positive feedback and really helping them to know exactly what it is that they're doing well, and understanding some things that they may be able to work on, that they may need to work on. It's really making sure we're giving accurate feedback, which then leads us to accountability, that anchoring accountability, not a I'm going to put my thumb on you. It is about keeping that momentum towards the desired outcomes that they have identified, and what we can do to support them in reaching their goal. It's a mutual accountability, with finally that modeling behavior. The more we are acting and really using the coach approach model and the values of the coach approach, that's where we can really have an impact on others. Go ahead. And just the visual of this process model for the coach approach, that we always start off with establishing presence, clarifying the focus, that we identify what is it that they want, what is the goal, what do they want to get out of the session, and then that explore and discover. It's really that messy middle that may take a longer period of time, that we don't always, it's not always crystal clear, but that's where a lot of some of the tough work can really happen. And then from that, creating an action plan for specific things that the coachee wants to get out of, that they want to do, and what they want to get out of not just the session, but the partnership in general. And then gaining that commitment. Are they committed to making this change? And anchoring accountability. So how can we as a coach, again, whatever our role is, that we're making sure that we're supporting the people that we work with, so that they can reach the goals, and also we can hold ourselves accountable for supporting them.
Yeah. And just, with that, gaining accountability and anchoring, gaining commitment, anchoring accountability, we cannot hold anybody accountable for things they have not committed to. Even if it's like a directive as a manager to a staff, if we're just saying to do this, and we've never really affirmed that I heard what the project is, I heard what this is, and I'm going to do this, we're not anchoring that commitment, that yes, this is how we're going to move forward in this. Then for even them to hold themselves accountable, or for us to support that accountability, it's really, really challenging. We've got to ask for that commitment.
All right.
So this is, we had talked a little bit about this in our last learning circle, creating this idea of psychological safety, and this idea of connecting psychological safety is what we're going to focus on today, about how we're going to connect this with our values and our mental models. So if you remember from the work that we had kind of talked about before, and I had shared some of this, and we'll make sure that to also get you the information on it. So this is actually from Google, and it's from a project called Project Aristotle. And this idea of psychological safety, it's referring to an individual's perception of the consequences of taking an interpersonal risk, or a belief that a team is safe for risk-taking in the face of being seen as, and these are hard words, ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive. Feeling safe for this risk-taking piece in the face of being seen as ignorant, incompetent, negative, or disruptive. So when we are looking at this whole idea is, in a team with high psychological safety, our teammates, our coworkers, our community, feel safe to take risks around their team members, putting their voice out, putting their opinion out, putting the opportunity to question even the hierarchy, question the leader. They feel confident that no one on the team will embarrass or punish anyone else on that team for admitting a mistake, asking a question, or offering a new idea. This is a really big, long paragraph that has a lot of information in it. And if you really look at it, it is that ability and the feeling of safety to question what I'm seeing, to question the process, to put a new way of thinking about it. If many have maybe seen the piece from Amy Edelson on psychological safety, we did look at it in the last learning circle, and one thing she talks about is examples of a nurse that was looking at a medication for a patient, and it maybe looked contraindicating for what she was seeing, but yet she says, you know what, last time I asked the doctor a question, he yelled at me. So you know what, he's probably right, I'm just going to do it. Or a team that may not feel comfortable to put out, I see this differently. So they just pull back, and maybe they feel less included or less opportunity to talk about that. So when we talk about this idea of psychological safety, and also we're going to talk about this in our values and kind of how we see the world around us, this idea of psychological safety is really about how we want to show up and how we want to support those around us, to show up, to take a little bit of a risk and to really move things forward. So when we talk about this idea of psychological safety, again, this is from Project Aristotle, and if you can always Google Project Aristotle, and it'll show up. It's called re.work is how you find it. It's one of the Google sites. When we talk about psychological safety, we look at this in a continuum. So psychological safety is this kind of team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. This idea of dependability, that as team members, we get things done on time, and this is in Google's word, and meets the Google's expectation of excellence. Yet when we talk about this, this is actually really what we want to see in each other. We want to be able to put something out there and depend and know that the person's going to help us and get done what they've committed to. Structure and clarity, that team members and individuals know their roles, plans, and goals. And that's how, as leaders, when we talk about this idea of listening and communicating, we're clear. We're also listening for what's not being said. And we're letting and building the psychological safety for the team to question us as we put things out there to say, I see this differently. Or can you provide me some more detail on this because you're not being clear? Be very self-reflective here. A lot of my emails, I sometimes get a little bit sidetracked in emails and conversations. And one of the things I always say to my team is, if I'm not being clear, please ask. Or if I forget something, please put it out there. And it's about knowing where we're vulnerable, knowing where we're strong, and knowing that others are there to help us out as well. This idea of meaning. Work is personally important to the team members. That's a big piece of psychological safety, that if you find your work meaningful, you can feel safer. And impact, how we impact the work, how team members impact the work, that matters. And also that impact will create change. Okay, so we're going to go into psychological safety in a lot more detail in some future classes, but just want to put this out there in this idea of psychological safety, dependability, structure and clarity, meaning and impact are all areas that we want to see individuals feel strong in and individuals to really move forward in. I think you're going to talk a little bit about the discussion versus dialogue and how we want to move to dialogue. So when we think about this idea of discussion versus dialogue, discussion is how most people communicate. This is really how we talk. Ideas are presented, everyone kind of analyzes, takes a look at it, dissects them, takes it or leaves it. The purpose is to support your idea, stress your point strongly, and advocate for what you want. The purpose of the discussion is to make sure that you win. we also have to assume that the solution is defined and known in discussion. How many conversations are we in, from human services, healthcare, behavioral health, drug and alcohol, however you want to look at it, where the solution is defined and known? A lot, a little. How many of our conversations, it's there? Not many.
A few.
A few. Absolutely. Yet not all of them. When we talk about this idea of discussion, we're all on the same page already. When we're talking about dialogue, dialogue is the invitation to talk. It's an exploration of ideas. And this is important. A dialogue is really when we are presuming the problem is not even clearly understood or defined yet. And the purpose of the dialogue is to help define what the ideas are. The idea is that everyone can work together, contributing towards and addressing the idea of the challenge. More is achieved as each person adds their perspective, bringing it back to psychological safety. People aren't afraid to put that kind of off the wall, or, hey, I know that we have tried this 100 times. You know what? I think it's worth it one more time. Without this idea of psychological safety, I'm not going to say that because it's worked and it's failed. Yet maybe it will work. No one tries to win, and all are learning and creating. That's really important when we think about this idea of dialogue. It's not that you have to win the idea, because it may be your idea, maybe your project that you're moving forward. Yet if you're having the dialogue and being open to exploring ideas and other ways of doing, you may really learn that, wow, I really was going to go this way. And until I really talked with everybody, I realized I wasn't seeing the full picture. I didn't see all the complications that might be out there. Coming from a system of care world or behavioral health world, if I'm just speaking from a system partner's perspective and not getting the value of having youth and family brought into this, from that lived experience, then I'm seeing one side of it, and it may not work. And this idea that everyone is able to and needs to suspend their individual assumptions. There are things that they're holding really, really tightly, with the idea of exploring new ideas. How many have heard or seen this kind of two varying definitions of discussion and dialogue? Is this new to people?
Mark, it's somewhat familiar, and I'm looking at both sides, and I wanted to say you're absolutely right. Sometimes you have some people will go in and the discussion and dialogue is great, and then you'll have people, and the best example I can use is there was a time where some people were still using the old medical model. And you couldn't question it, you couldn't do anything because this is what the doctor said, and and this because the doctor said it, and this is what we use. And what they found, the old medical model wasn't working anymore. So they had to introduce a new model. But for a long time, everyone used the old medical model. Well, the doctor said it because that's the doctor, and the doctor wrote it. and nobody else's experiences or input was included in the treatment plan except what the doctor said based on am I making sense, on the old medical model? But now the treatment plan is quite different. It's not just the psychologist or the psychiatrist. Now it's the case manager. It's the clinical supervisor. It's the person with lived experience. It's all these other people, and in reality, it makes the treatment plan better and more successful for the client. And that's the best way I can explain it. I don't know if that made sense.
For me, I think it did. Because I think what I also heard you say, Amani, was this idea that everyone's got a good and valid opinion, and that we can see a person, I hate to say a case, we can see a person from so many different perspectives. if I just look at what I read about a person and another person has that really individual one-on-one encounter, you're going to see things very differently. And just that idea of safety enough to say, my perspective is my perspective. And we have this opportunity to really hear these other perspectives. Awesome. All right, so I think we're going to work on connecting this to psychological safety. So this is some of the information we're going to talk about now in a moment is really this idea of our values and how we see our values and how our values can challenge great work, great collaboration, even if our values are great. We're going to do a little exercise around that. So when we think about our values, we have to know our values are subjective reactions. Our values define what is good and bad. Our values also really look at what is right and wrong. Our values are intentional definitions, or internal definitions, I apologize, and are developed early and resist change. Our values are built in our culture, our understanding, our mindsets. They're shaped by our experiences and shaped by our important experiences. They're shaped by our parents, by our grandparents, by those that influence us, especially when we're growing up. They rise out of out of behaviors that we see and that we experience. And as a result, we behave towards others in ways that are aligning with our values, ideally. When we think about our values, we also have to realize, and this is really from this idea of system of care, always there is more than one value system at work. So I look at this. This is a slide that has federal government, community taxpayers, providers, child welfare agencies, youth, families, state agencies, administrative staff, and you could put a million different things. These are all kind of positions or entities. They all have a value system as individuals and as entities. And sometimes when we think about this idea of values, we have to realize that our perception of the values of what we're seeing in systems may be very different of where their internal values are. I come from health choices, and I know that's not on there. We could put that on there. It's about Medicaid funding and services and supports for behavioral health. Managed care organizations, behavioral health. A lot of people say, well, their value is about spending less money for treatment. That could be a value. Yet, if you have the dialogue and discussion, dialogue with those representatives from that managed care organization, they may say their values are very different. They may say that there's limitations on what they can approve, yet their value is to get every child the service that they need. And they may just be just as frustrated as you when that doesn't work. What we want to really kind of focus on is that all of these different pieces have a value and have values that they're built off of. And if we just assume what those values are and go off of that assumption, we may hurt some of those relationships. So we're going to do an exercise because we want to start to kind of think about our values. And we're not going to do the, I think we'll do a little bit shorter one. We're not going to have you do is select all 10. We'll start off with 5. So I'm going to put this up on the screen. I said this is in chat. The document is called, doesn't look right. Sorry about that. I'm looking at the title, and the title does not look correct. The document is going to be called Activity Simple Values List. I'll put that right in chat, so it's right there at the ready for you. One more time, and we'll share this. So what we want you to do is just take 3 or 4, let's say 4 minutes. And this is a little bit shorter than the longer list that we have. We use for this, we do this course in Adaptive Leadership for System Change, and this has 2 pages of information. Actually, there's 2 pages, but this is actually just still a little bit shorter. So what you can do is, and you can actually just put a little checkbox over any of these, and we want you to pick 5. I want you to look at all of these different values, and you can even write in some that aren't there. I want you to look at all of these different values and pick the 5 that are maybe the most important for you. So thinking about this in the way of what are these values that are really kind of speak to you and who you are. So actually, let me see if this will show 2 pages at once. Let me just adjust this a little bit so I can see if that's going to show me 2 pages at once. No, it's not. Okay, never mind. Does everybody have the document that they can access? I know we emailed it out as well as put it in chat. Take just a couple of minutes and just pick like the top 5 values that are really kind of landing for you. And let me know if you have any questions at all. Here we are. That might be easy to see. A minute and a half.
Mark, Deb
Yeah.
said you can't see it in chat, so I'm not quite sure.
Oh.
Hi,
It
I
should
can
be
see
a
it.
document. If you're on the phone, may not show.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, but you just typed in chat, so.
But if you might be on a phone or a laptop, it might not show. Like the documents.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Let me see. I think I had your email here. Let me just send it out real quick. There we are. Okay. So with that, did everybody get about 5 of the values? See. Yep. Okay. Good. Okay. 2 minutes. Take it down to 3. So of those values, the 5 that you picked, well, you know, it's smaller. So we'll just do 1 minute. 1 minute to pick your top 3 values. Oh, nice. It's actually an hour of the Jeopardy song. I don't know that we want to spend the entire hour listening to that. Okay. Oh, okay. A couple people that are annotated. No big deal. We'll just clear that real quick, and then now we want you. Oh man, stop that. Here we go. Pick your top value. Top value. The one that is the most important for you. And 30 seconds. All right. So let me just do the share here again. Okay, so we're going to do a little exercise here, and I am going to type as we talk about this exercise. So when we talk about our values, the first step on a journey to a credible leadership is clarifying and really understanding our values. That's the leadership challenge by Coos and Posner. It was from 2007. So we looked at the kind of the hierarchy of values, and we're going to take a moment and actually talk about our values. So as you are able to, I invite you to unmute yourself, and let's just go around and put out what were some of your top values that you saw. So mine is honesty. That's one of my, I think, really big values. Who else?
Mine is creativity.
Creativity.
Because I just believe we all have the ability to make something. When you create, you bring something into being.
Who else? Growth. Who else?
I say health.
Health.
Maybe because that can encompass some of the other ones, because you can be, healthy psychologically and spiritually, and through how you treat people, and having a healthy brain with your thoughts. Yeah.
It is hard to pick just one. Yes, it is.
I went.
Okay.
This is Angela. I went with balance. I actually use this at our drop-in center. You remember that topple game? I don't know if everybody remembers that topple game when you were younger. It was like you put the pieces on this balancing thing.
Yeah, didn't they hang off or something?
Yes,
You
but
can
you
pick
can, they
them.
can hang off, or you can balance them on top and it topples over. And we talk about all the different areas of your life, your spiritual, your health, your growth, everything. And we talk about just balancing it all and trying to find a way to balance everything in life. So mine's balance.
All right, I see. We also have some in here from the group for trust and for kindness, respect. Any others?
Spirituality.
Spirituality, yeah. I don't know why that just folded. Wasn't trying to emphasize that, just
For me, I think growth.
growth. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely. Any other ones?
I actually went with health as well. I think it's because I'm particularly privileged and have always had pretty good health. And when I don't, it's hard for me to do anything else, to have any spoons for anything. So I'm sure people who might have dealt with ongoing conditions have learned to compartmentalize, but no, I'm a baby.
Yeah. And then we normally always have family is a big value, and faith or religion is a value.
About rest.
Rest.
Community.
Community, yeah.
Resourcefulness.
All right. I'm a horrible speller. Spell check. Okay. So these, I think everybody could agree. There's not one bad value here. I mean, if we met somebody with all of these values, it would be like the greatest thing in the world. Like these are all really good pieces, good things, that safety and honesty and creativity, compassion, rest, faith, resourcefulness, the idea of community and bringing community together. These are all really good things. And when we think about this idea, bringing back to psychological safety, this idea that our values, no matter how good they are, can bump. So we look at this idea and this idea of our values bumping or not playing well together. I look at maybe there's a couple of these. Actually, I think that maybe this is the best example. I'm going to annotate and draw here for a second. So I'm looking at this in the way of honesty and kindness. How might those two values not live well together? What could you see as how they might not go well together?
Because sometimes you have to be kind and dishonest if you're like going to hurt somebody's feelings or something, or I don't know, there's various situations, but yeah, that would be hard to do at all times.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm brutally honest about what I'm seeing and what I want to get done, that kindness piece, that's going to have to take a back seat. And that's going to bump, because if I'm being really, really honest of this is what I saw and I'm not happy about it, the kindness piece may not be there.
But sometimes it's hard to be honest. Let's be realistic. Sometimes we're not really honest because we're kind. And if we think sometimes if we be honest with someone, they may not see that as kindness, even though we might be telling the truth. Absolutely.
Yeah, what if, and like it's not up here, but family and work ethics or completing projects timely, like that kind of idea of kind of how we see things, how we want to work. So imagine you're sitting there, you're working on a project with another person, and the person says your value is work ethics or timeliness of projects. You're working with somebody whose values family. And it's 4:30 and they say, I gotta go. I gotta go pick my kids up. And now all of a sudden you're saying, well, but the project's not done. Those are two very great values: family, work ethic, and they might not sit well together.
Well, you know what I say to that? Yeah, if it was a Friday and they happened, I could agree with somebody. But it was like during the week, it was Monday through Thursday. You didn't like get that taken care of, like had nobody take care of your family. You know you had to do this project with me. That's how I would take it. But it was the weekend, and I'm like, okay, it's the weekend. That's family time. We have all. But if it's during the week, no, I got a problem with that. That's just me personally.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm a single parent. And so as a single parent, I had to always make sure I had to play A, B, C, D, E, F, G for my son for daycare, just in case I got stuck at work, just in case this happened, I can't get my son from school. You know, I had a list of people that I had to call. So if I had to do that, whatever I had to do, I expect the same or better from other people. So certain things I won't tolerate, but that's my value.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing, Benita, is your value of responsibility, work is really, really strong.
Correct.
And I'm going to say the same thing, that a person's value of family can be just as strong. And we can both agree that work ethic is a great value, and so is loving your family or caring for your family. Like I said, we can agree that those are two great values, and they might not go well together. Let's get one more example of a value bump. What else are you seeing in this?
Mark, this is Kim. I could see there being a bump with health and faith.
Tell me more.
So, I know some folks who have, they have strong faith. They just have such strong spiritual connections. And then they start to question that when they're impacted somehow health wise, because they connected the two in terms of their health is being led by their spirituality, right? So if they become unhealthy, what did they do to deserve that? Or what wasn't seen by the larger entity in order for them to kind of fall off the radar? That's where I've seen that bump. Yeah.
It's funny you said that, because I was in a group that's the day I was running, and this woman's Asian, and we was talking about medical professions and what, you know, our experiences. And she was saying after she had her child, in her culture, you're supposed to rest 30 days. But because she was a single mother, she did not rest. So ever since she had her baby, and she would take care of baby as a single parent because she was divorced, she had problems with her knee. And she think because she didn't rest for her 30 days, that was like the way of her belief paying her back for not following her belief system in her Asian culture. So when you said that, it's kind of made me understand her a little bit better, which was explaining it to me yesterday, what you just said. It kind of relates to what you just said.
Yeah, absolutely. And this, if you remember, like the ladder of inference, in a way, we're filling in gaps of information that we don't have. And we have the opportunity to discover and learn more. So as we're looking at our time and moving, and this is, like I said, this is part of the adaptive leadership for system change. We actually spend, I think, almost a half a morning on this idea of values and bumping. So as we do this in the future, we can always add into this. So in this idea of values bumping, in our day-to-day work and have leadership work, we may find ourselves feeling frustrated, irritated, cranky, unsure of others and their intentions. They may not be in full-blown conflicts yet, they can slow down our progress, cause rifts in relationships, or endanger trust and safety. So just thinking about that idea of work ethic and family. The person says, I need to go. My assumption is they don't care about the project. That's not true. Could be, but I don't know that. It's this idea that when my value of work ethic is so strong that I start to negate or lower the values of others and just bring these assumptions forward without getting clarity, this is where we look at this idea of values bumping. So this idea that we are truly bumping two two great pieces of who we are. And it's really challenging. Well, you have to look at it when there's two legitimate competing values show up and are in the moment incompatible. Two values, both legitimate, are showing up and they're incompatible. Really interesting when we think about this, because as we're looking at this idea of a reset, we have to notice what we need to keep in that value of work ethic. Maybe my value of work ethic says, you know what, I understand that they have to go because of their family. Maybe we can come up with an agreement that we're going to follow back on this in a day. I'm going to continue working on this because it's important to me, and I understand it's part of your family. Your family is really important. So I'm going to set back that idea of work ethic that is so strong, and I'm going to say, you know what, family is important to me too. And I'm going to take that value of work ethic and pull it back a little bit and really start to think about, you know what, that family is really important to them. Or maybe my value is the other piece I can use is understanding, trying to understand their situation, their challenges. So when we think about this, we have to let some stuff go. We have to keep some stuff. And when we let some stuff go, there is a loss. And that's where that psychological safety comes in, and communication and true dialogue versus discussion. And what other values do I possess which can support me to either soften that blow, that value bump, or to reframe the loss? And that's an internal piece. We don't know always what that other person's value is. We can assume and fill in the picture all we want. Yet we have to take that step back and just say, you know what? Not in my control. And have the dialogue about it. It's a little thing called values bumping. Any questions on that? Thoughts on that? Has anybody heard of values bumping before?
No, but I'm thinking like I had a situation last week. I was at the Social Security office. I already didn't want to be there mentally. They've been messing with me since January. So when I went in there, I didn't have the right type of attitude. And the person that I was talking to, it wasn't his fault, but he got the end of the stick because they was messing me around. But then as me and him started talking, I learned, he said that I know how you feel because I was out on disability and I had to wind up going back to work. And he told me he shared his story. So his values didn't align with his company values. And once he heard me, once I heard him say that, I related to how his values was, how he was feeling. And then I told him how I was feeling. He said, you know what, Ms. Tillman, I understand. So when I left that office that day, he called me he was off the clock when he called me. Then he called me the next morning. He been calling me every day since I left the Social Security office to try to help me with my son's case because his values didn't align with his company values. But he opened up and shared to me that he understood where I was coming from. So when I found out he understood, I related to him and I said, look, this is how I'm feeling. This is what I'm going through. And since you understand, can you understand where I'm coming from? And he said, yes, I can. And we related. We came to an agreement. And every day he been calling me trying to get my son's stuff straightened out. And just by us having that dialogue back and forth.
Yeah.
I came in there with the mind frame, I'm going to lay them out and I'm mad but it turned around when I found out, oh, he understands. And he worked for this company, but his personal values don't align with the company. So that's what I fed off, and it worked.
Yeah, you came in, if you another way to even reframe it back to what we talked about, you came in for the discussion. I'm going to get my point across and win. And by opening up the discussion to more of a dialogue, able to see the other side, both putting out a little bit of vulnerability there, you were able to see the different perspectives. And that allowed you to move forward. Yeah. All right, we're going to move into mental models. I love mental models. This is fun.
So as we talked about, we're going to look at mental models and really how they relate to psychological safety. So when you think of mental model, what immediately pops into your head? That's okay.
Oh, I'll
sorry, go ahead. So, but what do you think of? We look at, obviously we have beliefs, assumptions, and models, but don't look at that in depth. I want you to think about what immediately pops into your head.
Whenever I think of when I see the word mental models, I always look at it in a positive terms. So everything's positive. I'm modeling this positive. That's just the way I view it. Everything's positive. Everything's positive. I'm modeling positive. Everything's just positive to me. Everything is mentally positive. Even if it looks bad on the outside, whatever, I will always try to find some way to make it look positive.
Got it. So that's so Monty, you're saying that that's really your mental model, is that you're always looking for that positive, regardless of the situation.
You're going to see that glass is half full.
Yeah. It could be on the other side of the mental model could be something very negative. And he has it right here, underlined, belief, assumptions. And sometimes that might not be good. So I try to stay away from those negative mental models. Mm-hmm. That's why I do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, again, that is kind of your coping is, when you are using that, you're really modeling resilience, and you're really showing how, you're always looking for that regardless, of what's happening. And so we really want to I think of mental models as really our worldview. How do we look at the world? How do we perceive it? And it's really, it's not just about us. It's about all of our experiences. It's every single sphere of influence that we've ever had is what really influences our mental models. It's our parents, our, schooling, our neighborhood, any of those things. And it's that ancestral voices. I really like that as well. Like that term, because it really helps us to look at, this is our family, tradition. So this past weekend, I met family that we didn't even know about until just a few years ago. It was our grandfather's aunt, and they have a huge family. There were like 370, family members. And so just to really connect with these people who I have not had, I've had very little interaction with, yet we all have, because of our ancestral connections, we had a lot of similar mental models. And just recognizing that entire cultures can have very similar mental models. And that's really kind of what makes us, that connects us to our culture or other communities, are those mental models. And so, when we think about that, our organizations, who we work for, who other partners that we may work with, there are mental models that are connected to that. And when they are positive, they can create an environment of safety, that psychological safety. And when they are negative, they can also create a lack of psychological safety. And so they're often unspoken. That's kind of the piece about mental models, is that we don't communicate them really. and they often can come out in negative ways, you know, if it's really looking even at kind of some of our biases. So, you know, looking at these are some of the determinants of mental models, and I've already talked about these a little bit as well. What are some other things that you think could influence, you know, that determine really our mental model? Other than what we have, culture, genetics, life experiences, anything specific that's jumping out at you that you feel it has really influenced your, you know, maybe it's a specific life experience. Go ahead, Martha.
I think for me, it just the whole while we've been talking, I just remember a situation, and to me, it seems to fit. But I worked at a battered women's shelter, and I believe in treating people well. I don't care who makes the most money, the least amount of money. And I watch the workers treat these women. I think of it now, and actually I'm getting goose pimples. But I watched the workers treat the residents like they were trash. You're working in a battered women's shelter, so you're going to have people with busted lips, sad to say, black and blue, injuries, casts, you name it. Why can't they come in the front office to ask you a question? And the fact that they would just say, oh, well, go back in the advocate's office. Why? You're in the front office and you're the person I had to, you know, you had to answer the question. And I labored over it for a long time, and I really addressed it in a staff meeting. That, but it got to the point where it went beyond that. When, you know, I just said, of all people, some of you, I remembered when you came here, beaten and bloody. And of all people, you leave, you get your families together, you get your life together, you come back here and work, and you treat them like a piece of you know what. And I was not liked for it, but I just felt that they, you know, and then I went too far, I guess, but I said, you know what, if these women were not here, guess what? You wouldn't have a job. And no one wants to see them come in like this, but just treat them the way, well, maybe not the way you want to be treated, but treat them like the individuals they are, and they deserve respect, and they deserve caring and trying to understand. And if it's too hot in the kitchen, get the hell out.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's the thing that I always thought. I guess I looked at it that way because mentally I have this belief in how you should treat a person. I don't care. And that I've never really gotten over it. They eventually got themselves together. Suddenly, you know, a couple people were let go because it had become severe, but why did it have to get like that? That far?
Yeah, and that's a great, you know, honestly, you are connecting, Martha, the values with those mental models, you know, that our values influence our mental models. And you know, we all have them. It's, you know, and I think it's kind of interesting because of the fact that you're really sort of talking about how people who have experienced trauma, yet they have forgotten that and have really shifted their perspective, and not necessarily in a good way. So, you know, that could be a whole other conversation that we could have. But I think that, you know, people shifting trauma can shift our mental models. And so just looking at the slide, you know, we do rely on them. We're not always aware of them. And I think especially with social media and, you know, not always communicating in person, or even just talking to someone directly, that we don't always realize that we are, you know, relying on them. And they are easy to see. We can have judgment of others. And that's really kind of what you're explaining, Martha, was that somebody was having, you know, that assumption, you know, and really looking at someone else's, we have great advice for them, and yes, they should do this, but they're not, and they're not really aware of how their own mental model is then influencing that. And so, it really, when we don't have, I often think of this as well, is when we have empathy, that we're not holding our own mental model so tight that we can't, we can't have respect, or we can't honor other people's mental models, and one of the things is that we have to, some of our assumptions may have supporting evidence, so meaning they're warranted, and many others have no supporting evidence. So, kind of what you were talking about, Martha, is that we have to look at what are the facts that are supporting our mental model, and what are, maybe we don't have enough facts, but we have to look at that. And that's kind of the key, is that we need to make sure that we're always testing it. Is what is the information, and do we have all the information? So if we believe something to be true that's not tested or not true, we often act as if it is true. And that's a Daniel Keiss quote. So go ahead to we're gonna watch a brief, we're gonna go back.
I moved the slide up since you said it, so.
Got it. Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah. And so we have a brief video that we want to show you.
And with that, I would just say, as a little bit of a warning, there is a picture of, or some images of a dog and a person that has a injury to their face. So just be aware of it. It's very quick. The video itself is quick. This is really about our mental models and how we can see, two people can see a dog and see it in very different ways.
We build knowledge from the information we are taking in from our senses every moment of our lives. Check out this dog. You might be willing to pet him. Or you might not. It's your mental model that makes the difference. Mental models are knowledge. They are what we build when we make meaning out of information, memories, and experiences. Just as your experiences are unique to you, so are the mental models you build. And the mental models you build are a powerful thing because they determine how you feel. And how you act. Mental models don't depend on words or language. From the moment we are born, we are building mental models. And for babies, that's a whole lot of building because almost everything is news to them.
So, again, as we talked about, I mentioned trauma, is that, those are all sensory experiences. Any of our experience we take in via our senses. And so those are the things that really do influence us, good or bad, they influence us. So when we think about mental models of leadership, these are some examples. So authority. So an example is, I provide technical assistance and tell people what they need to do. Kind of someone who is an expert and you have that authority. Management. When looking at it, the mental model of management is I'm on time and I'll send my providers protocols and checklists. Again, these are all examples. These are not, 100%. These are just some examples. Advocacy. I'm going to get everyone to see how great this idea is. That cheerleader, someone who really wants to encourage others. And then facilitator, I'll engage everyone and let them figure it out. So helping to support, which is really, all of these things are really embedded in coach approach, and that the skills that we use in coach approach and the mindset can influence our own mental model, and also help to bridge between two differing mental models. It can help kind of close those gaps between people having different mental models.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing with this, Anne, is even when we look at the words on the left, authority, management, advocacy, facilitator, if we were just to look at that word, authority, our mental model of authority could be very negative.
Negative, yeah.
Or it could be very positive. It really is perception of our experience, our understanding, and how we see the world around us. So I think we're going to do a quick mind map.
Yeah, I just wanted to model this for you. So mind mapping is something for us to think about when we are doing, for us to kind of explore our own mental models. When you think of a teenager, we could just, again, do this really quickly. Just throw out some words that you can think of when you think of a teenager.
Youthful exuberance.
Nice,
Difficult.
that's a positive one. What else?
Difficult.
Difficult, yes.
Curiosity, risk taker.
Yeah.
No boundaries.
Nice.
Sexual experience.
Oh, yeah.
Knows everything.
Yep. Wow. I hear we have lots of mental models out there for
bossy.
So
the one that we always get is smelly, and I don't know why.
That's true.
Teenagers' rooms are probably, they're usually skeptical, moody. Yeah. So, when we think of teenagers, it's kind of a great activity for us to explore. What is our mental model of a teenager? It's kind of like, what are those things that you immediately think of? And so a mind map is a way for you to, and really, even from each of these, you can, say, let's take risk taker. Okay, let's expand on that even a little bit more. What is it about risk takers that teenagers, how does that, why, or what is it about teenagers that are risk takers?
Yeah, how can that be a positive? How can that be a challenge? So you can look at it in all different ways. And the whole idea is we make these assumptions quick. Our mental models help guide us.
Yep. So, again, you can use the mind mapping. You really can use it for anything. It's a great tool for you to identify your own, as well as help others see theirs.
So what we're talking about is our goal is to really start to manage my mental model. We have to acknowledge that they are there. They're part of who we are. We can call it sometimes bias or opinion, however it is. We have to acknowledge that mental models are there. We have to pause our assessment of that mental model because we don't know all the information. We have to test it. We need to distinguish between our opinion and the fact or the data. We use inquiry instead of advice. So instead of saying, well, I think that you should do it this way, or I saw you do this and I think that you need to do it this way, you need to ask and learn. And we use dialogue instead of discussion. These are all ways that we're really working to manage these mental models. So what do we do when we manage these mental models? We're limiting our assumption. When it blocks or interferes with our ability to think clearly on a particular issue. If we're filling in the gaps and we don't know if those gaps are correct in how we're filling them in, we need to take that step back. They must be tested and evaluated. Talk about using the coach approach to adaptive leadership, to listen, to understand, to clarify and reflect, and to use these powerful questions of inquiry to discover what we don't know. And for that person to discover what they might not even see. We make sure that we're present, we're listening, and we're asking these great, powerful questions. And we're using this idea of inquiry, which is this powerful tool, supports our understanding of mental models and impacting our work and impacting our ability to build communities and areas that are psychologically safe. We're increasing our use of dialogue and collaboration. So with that, and we have a few minutes left, we just wanted to put this out for the room. What are the implications, can't talk today, of reframing our values or resetting our values, kind of holding back those values that we're holding so tight to build these stronger communities and to build psychological safety? What are the implications of that?
Better outcomes. For me, it will be better. It will be better outcomes. If anybody ever gets a chance, there's a movie called I Have a Little Faith. It's based on a true story. The author is Mitch McComber. And one of the main characters kind of reminds me of you, Mark. Very principled, creative man. But me watching that movie, it enlightened me to the point that I had to change some things which were awakened, because I realized that sometimes we think a certain way and it may not be right. And part of that comes from how we grow up. This is where, you taught this is right, and it may not necessarily be right. Yeah. So for me, it would be better outcomes. When you become more enlightened, you become more insightful.
Yeah.
And that's better outcomes for everyone, not just for you, but everyone that you're around. Home, work, whatever community you're in, it's just a better outcome when you're more enlightened.
And I'm going to add to that, Amani, that I think that there's the other part of it is it can also be very, very terrifying, nerve-wracking, to start to look at that idea of resetting or holding some of my things that I hold so dearly in this idea of either vulnerability or sacrifice in order to move things forward. It's not easy. It's not. Yet it's about how do we really want to move it forward? And then this is the other question, if we have time, is how can we tell when our mental models, that kind of idea of opinions about kind of how we're seeing the world around us, have interfered with our teams or goals? And I can say, like, from a perspective like I've seen, is that even the mental models that we have in system of care, that we identify people as family members, as youth, as system partners. And our mental models are that sometimes that all family are coming from the same perspective, all youth are coming from the same perspective, all child welfare, all juvenile justice are coming from this perspective of similarity. It's not. We know it's not. Yet our mental models may say that. And it negatively affects us.
That's true. That's true, because sometimes you could think something is right, and then you find out that you're really not right, or you could make an assumption, and that assumption could be totally wrong, and that happens a lot, in any type of area. I went to my family is from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so I was visiting some family members of mine, and I went down to like where the water was at, and it was a young Caucasian girl on the ground begging for money. So my cousin said, "Why is she here? Why is she begging for money?" Because, in her mind, what is she doing out here begging for money? So I said, well, you don't know what happened to her. Anything could have happened. We always assume that the person is a drug addict. Some of those people that are out there that are homeless are not drug addicts. Some of them have sustained some serious trauma. Mm-hmm. All of them are not drug addicts. So then again, but we just assume, they out there, they must be using drugs. That's not true. And I learned that from people that I met out on the streets. They were not drug addicts. They were not, matter of fact, some of them had homes, but they had experienced something so traumatic that caused them to go into another place. And that's the best way I can explain it.
Absolutely. And the reality is she could have been a drug addict, and that was the whole thing. Yet we don't know until we discover. So there was a great piece in chat. I just want to put it out there is when it comes to taking custody of or placing children, there are often gray areas. I mean, everyone has good intentions, So it's hard to come to a compromise. I think using the lens of what values impact our decisions could be helpful. Wow. It's a great way to frame values, and also this belief that the people that are doing this work, their intentions are ultimately, I think, coming from great places. Yet it may not always see that way because we're bringing a lot more of our own into this. And I just realized I was not sharing the right screen. Okay, never mind. So I actually have 4, so I want to definitely give some opportunity if you have questions. Ann and I will be on for a second, and I'll also put this in chat. If you would take a moment just to fill out the survey, that would be helpful. It's our evaluation of the webinar. And like I said, we will be recording this as well. And we'll send everybody who attended out the material as well in email with the attachments. What questions might you have if you have any? If not, we will invite you all to have a fantastic day.
I just want to say, Mark, this was great. I mean, this is really one of the best coach approach series y'all did. I really enjoyed this one.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, and I know Ann and I put a good bit of work into this one. So
I agree.
Yes, Mark, it was very, very good. When you sent out the reminder, you had 2 different quotes in there. And one I was very familiar with because I read the book. And the other one I wasn't familiar with. And I was like, oh man. I don't know if anybody's familiar with Dr. Viktor Frankl. He was a Jewish psychologist that was in the Holocaust. And his story is so incredible because he had to find meaning to these dire circumstances that he was in, watching family being killed, and at the same time not hate the people that were doing these things to him. I urge everyone. It's a fantastic book to read. I've read it several times. It has helped me tremendously in my life. The book, it kind of reminds me of what Mark, when he put that quote in there, that sometimes regardless of whatever circumstances we find ourselves in, there's still some meaning, and we have to find that meaning. And the meaning is not always negative. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you. Great coach approach. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, the quote that Amani is talking about is by Viktor Frankl. It's between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And as Mani said so fantastically, he wrote this as a survivor of Holocaust, and with no choice, no freedom, he still found those moments to say that there is the space. There is that space to choose how we want to respond. And that's where that growth and ultimately the mental freedom is. So beautiful. Thank you all. All right. So thank you all. And
Thank
so
you,
we'll
everybody.
get all this out, and absolute pleasure to see everybody again.
Thank
Lots
you.
of great discussion. Thank you all.